Looks like I don't have a shirt on right there.
Woohoo!
I'll just flex.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I can ask any of the questions?
Ask them different questions for
You can ask anything, I just don't have to answer. No,
Well, this
go
is
ahead.
true.
You
Yeah.
can-
No, and you don't need to answer anything
No,
that.
ask me anything you
Now we're
want.
going to do the complete, you know what would be a great show? Now we're going to do the complete opposite. We're an environmentalist. Whereas one bag saves, one bag will save the planet. You know, this is really my passion. So I really want to save everything, take the exact opposite of everything that he said.
Oh my God.
This guy would pull it off.
I could, yeah.
The best show ever, right?
We
I'd love
could.
to see that.
We could always come back and do that, but today's one's different.
I would love to see
We had, my friend and I, we used to have this
that.
goal
Go
to
sentence
see
by sentence.
who we could convince people of things that were completely false. Like we actually, my friend and I were able to take these horrible big brown onions and we convinced the entire group that they were actually as sweet as plums. And we got everyone there sitting eating them like just,
Oh my God.
and everyone's like enjoying the apple. We just started.
Have you seen the guy that convinced the world that he had this 5 Michelin star restaurant and it was in his backyard and he just kept taking phone calls and getting friends to
Oh,
write
yeah,
Yelp
yeah, I heard
reviews?
about him.
And he's apparently done it again, but as a fashion
As a
designer
yeah.
in Paris. Like
Yeah,
this
yeah, I
guy's
heard about
insane,
that.
but it proves the idiocy of so many people.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
If you say it enough, it's true.
Sorry?
If you say it enough,
Yeah.
it will become
Look
true.
at Donald Trump.
Yeah.
All right.
Do I look fat?
Yeah.
Totally fat?
Yeah, you look like, no. You need to see a fat person to ask that question.
It's just sitting and the dress is very tight.
You look
All right.
beautiful.
Are we ready?
You are.
One of the most beautiful people that's ever interviewed me.
Oh, so he's been interviewed a lot.
He said that.
No,
Ooh.
Okay.
I didn't say that. What?
You're right not to say it. Okay.
All right.
Crushed. Okay.
Tammy,
That's it.
that was the original.
That's the original.
Good Morning
OG.
La La Land.
The OG.
And now Sadie.
You didn't get that on camera, right?
Yep.
So what we'll be
It's not get
playing
a
when
mic or
everybody
anything,
turns up
yeah.
tomorrow morning.
It's going to be like in a live repeat just
mic.
going on everywhere.
Hot mic.
All of a sudden, all my like friends
Whenever
go
someone
down
asks
on
me,
social
"You on
media.
the show?"
You asshole.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
When you're ready.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I just have this one loose here. Okay. Welcome to Pathways. I'm your host, Natalie Sadie, and joining me today is Scott Harris, COO of the Building Construction Group. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. On Pathways, I like to discover the story behind the person, what it is that led them to become the person that they are today. So you obviously work as a luxury builder, you've worked with incredible people. What are some of the names you can tell us that you've worked with?
I've worked with Kevin James. I've worked with restaurants for Gordon Ramsay, Michael Mina, Ed Begley Jr., and then there's a lot of people that I can't really talk about.
Sure. And I've seen photos of the homes that you build, and if you haven't seen them yet, you need to follow Scott and see the work. It's incredible.
Thank you.
The lines and everything are just clean, and there seems to be a flow to your work that I think everybody tries to achieve but doesn't necessarily get. I don't know the right way to sort of verbalize it, but there is just this calmness with it.
Because it's not tangible, right?
Right.
It's because I think when you have really good work, it's something that you feel inside your heart. There's that moment that when you walk into a house and it could be ugly, it could be messy, but there's a feeling of alignment. And it's almost like the padlock, like if you were picking a lock and everything just went click, 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 click. And you can just take that breath and you feel it. That to me is what a beautiful home is. But there's so much that goes into it. There's science, there's math, there's curiosity, we don't know why it's so cool. But that's what it is. I mean, have you ever had that experience? You walk into a place and you're like, I don't get it, but there's something cool here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are many homes that I've walked into and thought, this isn't necessarily my taste, but I could live here so happily. And I have always put it down to the energy of the home, and I go through that whole process when I'm buying a property as well. I walk in, and some houses you go, nope, can't live here. I
Right.
get that it's beautiful, I get that it's in a wonderful spot, but you walk out just knowing
Right.
that you can't live there, and then homes which may not be as grand or finished or polished, but those are the homes where you walk out and you go, I need to live there.
Right, and it's so much. It has to do with the geography of where it is on the site. It has to do with the energy that's coming from the earth. It has to do with the people that build those homes. One of the things I do is I make sure that people that are building these homes, they're putting their energy into it. They're putting theirs. I mean, they're literally every single nail has been tapped in by somebody. So you're leaving your signature on a home, and if you've got a home that's been created by angry people, and you will feel it. You'll feel the difference. You could have the same thing, but there's a difference. So I like homes. They go, I don't get it. It's just I'm happy here, and that's what makes me happy.
I mean, every time that I've ever spoken to you or read anything about you, it's very clear that you have this passion within you for what you do. And I think that's part of what has made you such an incredible success. But what is it, or do you recall when you first fell in love with lines and the building and what have you?
So I wouldn't say that I fell in love with it as much as it was my therapy.
In what sense?
In the sense that as a child, I went through a lot of abuse. Sorry, tell my mom and dad. They told me not to talk about it, but oh well. But I went through an extremely abusive childhood, and I was not afraid to talk about it because it made me who I am. But I was literally locked up in my room. I was like caged like an animal. I was beaten to the point that I couldn't go to school because they didn't want anyone to see the bloody marks all over me. And so what do? Like, you feel a pain that's so deep that you need to release it or put it somewhere or deal with it. And so I was also, while I was locked in the room, asked to stand in the corner and stare in it. And so the brain is interesting, it needs some way to be able to figure out. So what I would do is I would stand in the corner and I would see the corner, and it bothered me that it wasn't 90 degrees. It wasn't perfect. And I said, that's why I'm getting the crap beat out of me, because the house is not perfect. This house is making my family be upset with me. And so if my room were better, if this corner was more square, if there wasn't that drip on the wall that somebody had painted over because they just didn't care and they just kept painting it, I felt there was so much of that energy of I don't care, and there was so much pain and so much hurt in that house that's I felt was the reason that I was hurt. And so I thought, I need to be able to evolve and get through this, and I want to make a home for people that they don't have to hurt like I ever hurt, because it really hurts.
Oh my God, this whole story, it breaks my heart. I can't believe that any child has to endure anything even remotely like this, and to know that this was what kept you sane. How old were you when you were going through this?
So I was, I remember it happening about 5 going on, and that's why I always talk about, I started building when I was 5. I started my personal therapy when I was 5. And that's why I started fixing my room and trying to change it and experimenting. It turns out it didn't really work too much.
In terms of calming the home?
I mean, yeah. And it calmed me, though. It brought me peace, because I'd find that if I would just change proportions, or I would change little things, and I would sketch up new ways of doing things that, I'm not saying they were great, but it was my therapy. It was the only way that I could, survive that environment that was just, it created a pain that was so great that you wonder how you're possibly still alive, feeling that depth of pain and wondering if you even still want to be alive. And so that was my only safe place to go.
There's an incredible depth of knowledge that you have about self and what you were doing to essentially medicate or give yourself that therapy. Is that something that's come over the years with hindsight, or did you realize what you were doing at the time?
I realized I was very aware of it, I think, at the time. I was very conscious that there was for some reason, I always thought that there was some great purpose for me on this earth. And I always thought, you know, maybe it was just me just trying to deal with it, but I always thought there was something really special about me that needs to be shown to the world, like somehow I had a gift. And I'm not saying I do, but it was like the thing that got me through it, because, you know, I was, the things that I was told, and I was told I was like the ugliest person in the world and an idiot, stupid. And
Your
like,
parents were telling you this?
yeah, and so you just think that you're just like this little peon. It's like, I just felt like somewhere there was something special that I'm supposed to do, and I would see myself, and I would transport myself into that moment, like today. And it's like wonderful to be here on the couch, sitting here with you, and maybe this is our therapy couch for the morning, but this is the moment that I had dreamed of, and so it was real. And to be able to build these homes, so I've actually found out that by building these homes for people, it does make them happier. You know, I've seen families that are, can be unhappy, and we've created these homes for them, and they'll call me a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, and they tell me that their life is better, that they love their wife. You know, like I had a client tell me yesterday, they took us out to dinner, and they said, my husband loves the shower. Like, it's a special shower where I didn't want to see the niche where you put the shampoo. I took the stone, we water jetted it out, and it's like a perfect piece of slab that's just invisible at the door, and you just touch it and it opens, and you can get it stainless steel.
Wow.
And it was something I wanted to do for them, because they didn't want to see like stuff, right? And so she said, my husband is so happy in there. And when he's in there, he actually talks to himself. And I said, I do too. And he said, and he actually has conversations with me.
Oh.
And I said, because, and she said, then I walk into the bathroom and I realized that I entered in halfway in, but I said, he loves you because you're happy. You're in a happy place. And so those things bring me new tears of joy. You know, I'm not unhappy by or dissatisfied by anything that ever happened in my life. I don't blame my family. To me, the brain is an organ just like your heart. Some people have heart problems and they have heart attacks. Some people have liver, some people have cancer. Some people have brain where they're just not healthy. So I don't blame them, and I'm thankful for everything that I've been through, but I don't want anyone to ever have to go through what I went through. So that's why I do this. Otherwise, it really wouldn't make sense.
No, I mean, there are so many things that I want to say and want to ask. How many years did you have to deal with that abuse for?
I found all my things around the sycamore tree when I was about 15 and a half years old.
So they threw you out?
Yeah. I came home and I had everything around the sycamore tree. And so when I do projects for people, I like to put sycamore trees. That's one of my favorites, because to me it wasn't a bad thing, it was a rebirth. It was the time that you get to relive and re-energize and change. And so I have sycamore trees all over my house. And I turned something that was painful and negative at the time into something that's positive.
Which I think is the healthiest way to deal with trauma like you've been through, but it's so much easier said than done. I mean, it's such an emotional journey to let go of things that we've lived through in our past. Have you ever been able to, I don't know, have it out with your parents and actually talk about what happened, or is it just one of those things that you don't touch on?
I'm wondering if you put a roofie in here, because I don't know how you're getting this all out of me. But
no drugs, I promise.
No, okay. But I mean, I guess we could tell them to tune in, right? But no, I mean, we've talked about it, and I just don't think, I mean, the things that I heard from them were just things I won't even repeat, but the answer is no, because I don't think they're in a bright place of mind. Okay. I don't think they understand. You know, I'm not angry with them. So I think that not everybody is unfortunately healthy. But it's a reminder that you've got to find healthy people in this life. You've got to surround yourself with people that are healthy. And, you know, it's interesting, they say you don't have a choice with your parents, right?
Absolutely.
You can't. Or maybe on some level, I chose these people just to make me who I am, and maybe it was the challenge of life, because I realized I would rather have the first few, you know, developmental life tough to be able to have the rest of it's fantastic. And so some people just go on life and, you know, hey, life's great, whatever, wonderful, and it doesn't really change much, but I'm so thankful for what happened because I can change other people's lives and I can affect not just one, but two, and I can affect hundreds or maybe thousands.
It's an incredible way to look at it, and growing up, I had my own trauma, and I have always lived by a very similar rule that, you know, those first and teenage years were so difficult, and I know I
Right.
moved out of home at 15 or 16 myself, and I found I could breathe when I moved out,
Right.
and I was able to find out who I was rather than the person I had been told that I was, and what I endured was very different to you. But to be able to let all of that go and move on and have that outlook, I have discovered, is a very, very rare thing. So I take my hat off to you for being able to figure all of that out, to not carry anger, because the moment you carry that anger, you're giving them the power that they ought.
Right, and I honestly, I did carry anger with me for so many years. It took a while to be able to get rid of it. And then you realize that anger is nothing more than unexpressed hurt.
Absolutely.
And so as long as you express it, like I'm expressing it, so hey, I feel better now than I did before I talked about it. So as long as you express it, it's no longer technically you're hurting. It's just becomes a memory, it becomes a history, it becomes a lesson in life.
And so now when you're working on homes and you're designing these lines, and we have talked off camera about this, when you're designing the lines in particular homes, like it's not just one straight line that you're talking about, you will make those lines carry themselves all the way up the stairs and into the foyer
Right.
or the landing and all of that. And do you get that sense of, when you're doing that, when you get that visual sort of flow and harmony in a home?
I do, and I mean, for me, it's something that's innate to do that. There's so many proportions, and there's things that are probably take too many hours to talk about, but things that make people feel good. There's certain shapes, there's certain sizes, there's certain numbers, and it's just on some level will make you feel good. And I have this feeling that when people walk through a home, they look in the baseboard and like it doesn't really line up with the stair thing, and it bothers them, and then you somehow carry that with you, and then you see the dog and you kick the dog, and your wife does something silly and you're like, what are you doing? And you don't realize that just that little thing, it just kind of started trickling down, but then it go back down the stairs, and then my son, what is it? You know, it's just, and so versus going up there and just doing that, it just feels right. It
Yeah.
feels good, and it's like, honey, you're beautiful. Wow. I love you, my kids. I'm so glad you're here today. So I know there's probably some too big of an idea to believe that it's true, but you know, I've seen the homes that we've built, and I'm in touch with all the families. Like they become my families. So now I have families everywhere that heals me, and so they're all happy.
But these people that you work with, you're not working with them for a month or a couple of months. You're working with them because these are big projects, so they take some time. Am I correct?
Yeah, projects can take anywhere from 12 months to 5 years, if depending on the run of how long they want to go and how much their financial situations
Yeah.
are. But you don't break contact. I mean, when you create a haven for somebody and you create something that heals somebody, they don't let go of that. You know, you're the first person that they end up calling. You're the first one that they go to when they need help. And so I'm still friends with clients from 20 years ago.
It's incredible. It's like you've created an entire world for yourself that it's almost like your dream world from when you were younger. You've created a little family that sort of just keeps expanding and is filled with love, which is not an easy thing to do. And I think in LA it can be an even harder thing to do.
Right.
So, you know, I think you're kicking life's ass. I don't know how else to say it, but you're doing amazingly, because so many people would endure what you have and become a complete mess, unable to function, unable to turn all of that anger into something incredible. And you've not only done it for yourself, but you've given back to so many other people.
Well, I was doing drugs for a while, and then I tried to cut myself, and I'm kidding.
It's like, wow, this is getting even deeper than I anticipated.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I never did any of that stuff, so thank you. But no, but, you know, I think people, the only reason I'm sharing this story with people is because it should be a positive story, that things are only happening in that moment. You know, we have feelings, we have emotions, we have anger, we have pain. We don't have to live with that feeling with us forever. Energy never changes. Form is never lost, it just kind of changes the form. And so you can think about it enough, you can take anger and turn it to passion. You know, you can take hate and you can turn it into love. There's no reason that you can't do that. So it's an energy and it's a form, you can actually embrace it. So if you've been damaged somehow, somebody abused you, you've been given the gift of energy. What you do with it is your choice.
100%. Now, unfortunately, we're running out of time because I would love to continue this conversation. But I ask everybody the same question, and I almost feel as if it's been answered by everything we've talked about. But what mark do you want to leave on this world?
Who's Mark?
Your mark.
No, I'm kidding. The mark that I want to leave on this world is, it's a broad, I mean, the things I want to do, but I would say on a simple thing, in 2 words, it's my children. I want to be able to, makes me cry a little bit, but
It's fine.
be able to teach my children the things that I wasn't able to do, and to be able to be one person and make 2. You've started to double it. And so I feel that that's my mark that I want to leave, is to be able to change the world through teaching my children how to change the world.
It is so beautiful. And I am so grateful for you coming and sharing such a personal story with me. But I feel like it's a story that needed to be told. I feel like it's something that will help other people get through whatever it is they're going through. And I'm a big believer in the saying, this too shall pass. And it will.
Right.
Scott Harris, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
That's all for today's episode of Pathways.